Thursday evening, 9/12/24, House of Orange Sports Channel, your everything Vols sports channel. This is Frank Rock coming at you. This is part 3 of 4, the evolution of Tennessee's defense. I'm going to put a lot in perspective for you tonight as we've gone through the first 2 seasons of it. 2021, of course, that Tennessee team went 7-6. They ended the season in a bad way in that Purdue bowl game. But if you look back at that, their best defensive back, Alante Taylor, did not play. You had Theo Jackson playing. But, man, that was a makeshift defense. I'm going to put a lot of it in perspective with some numbers for you now. 2022 seemed better. The record was better, right? But then you had, like, the South Carolina game. And I forgot to mention this last night, and I don't know how I did. But it also, a lot of this shows, too, there was improvement in 2022, but then you have that South Carolina game, the Connor Stallions game, we said, but the game, nothing worked that night. And, something that was not mentioned was supposedly the Jeremy Banks debacle, the locker room issue. Him suspended for that game, did not play in that game. But Jeremy Banks, I was looking back at his numbers from 21 to 22, 128 tackles, 5.5 sacks in 2021. 53 tackles, no sacks in 2022. That dude fell off big time. At the end of that season, he did not even play in the bowl game. I think it's a dude that had some talent, but just could not get out his own way at times. And, he was afforded an opportunity to come back on the team. I don't know that I can't answer a lot of questions on that one. It was weird. But then, that Tennessee team did finish 11-2. But if you look at that defense, all right, so from 2021, they ranked, this is according to college football stats, 99th in the country. 2022, they ranked 92nd. Little bit of improvement there. 2021 rushing stats, they gave up 1,931 yards, 24 touchdowns. 2022, 1,861 yards, 15 touchdowns. A little bit of improvement yardage-wise, 9 less touchdowns given up. Passing-wise, 2021 gave up 3,551 passing yards, 300 completions, 489 attempts. They had 13 interceptions, gave up 23 touchdowns. 2022, on the other hand, gave up 3,764 yards. Now, here's part of the reason that did go up. 333 attempts, completions, 532 attempts. So there was, 43 more attempts that year. Not a huge amount, but, that is a difference, obviously. 11 interceptions, so they were down 2. They gave up 2 less touchdowns, though, 21. So 2022 had a little bit of improvement. I mean, some of those games that was remembered from that season, Kentucky, where they shut Kentucky down, but there were some games along the way. It was like, yes, some things were better, but sacks, 2021 had 34 sacks. 2022 only had 27 sacks. So, did they make a huge improvement in 2022? I don't know that they did, but their offense bailed them out in some games there as well. But it was not a great defense either year. A little bit of improvement, but not a huge improvement. Now, fast forward to 2023, okay? Who was out? So this is going to be the biggest thing right here. So let's, I'm going to share the screen. Let's pull up 2022 here real quick. We're going to go through that defensive roster as to who was on it, okay? Most of these dudes were back for 2023. Who they lost here, I'm trying to go through it. They did not lose any defensive backs, unless it was possibly Portal. We'll have to look at that. They didn't lose any to graduation here. Latrell Bumpus, gone. Let's see here as well as we go down the line. I think Amari McNeil transferred, not a big difference maker. Dejon Terry did leave the program. He did transfer to Oklahoma. Karat Garland was a guy who'd played. Now, here was your big loss was Byron Young. Byron Young had 7 sacks in 2022, so he was gone. That was a loss to this team that year. Of course, Juwan Mitchell, a guy I had high expectations for him. He didn't live up to it. He didn't do it. He couldn't get out of his own way in Knoxville. Aaron Beasley. Aaron Beasley was back for 2023. Of course, Jeremy Banks was gone. I think it was pretty much over for him after that South Carolina game. Did not play the bowl game. It is what it is. Solon Page, he was gone at that point as well. And then, that's it as far as that's 2022. So now let's look at the 2023 signing class here as well. That's going to tell us, who did Tennessee add? They had some good players in 2022. None of them really made that big of a difference here. So now let's go to the signing class. We put all this together. This is according to On3. Tennessee ranked 12th in the nation. Man, this class is going to be one when it's all said and done. I think you get a re-rank of classes, this is going to look a whole lot better than it did according to here. So here's Davin Hobbs, a guy who's yet to kind of make a huge difference. He's in the rotation, though. He's playing. Big-time recruit they added. Hasn't, but he's behind a lot of guys. Caleb Herring, another really good recruit, consensus 4-star. Arion Carter, here's a guy now starting alongside Keenan Pilley. Was starting to come into his own last year in 2023. Then he had the injury out for the year. Shandavion Bradley was a guy, consensus 4-star across the board. He's gone. He transferred to JUCO. For whatever reason, did not work out for him. Jordan Matthews, here, consensus 4-star. Backup defensive back, starting to play a little more. Seems like he's starting to do his thing. He redshirted last year. Going on down the line, Ricky Gibson is a guy now, started the bowl game. He's your starter at one corner now. Looked pretty good. What Lloyd's played. Tyree Weathersby, a guy, high hopes, 4-star by On3, 3-star in the rest, but he redshirted last year. He is playing this year. Jalen Smith's a guy, consensus, 3 of the 4 outlets, a 3-star linebacker, 4-star according to Rivals. But in a couple games, man, he looks pretty good. So he's a guy, maybe a big part of this. Emmanuel Okoye, come in more of a project. Started off as a tight end, moved over to defensive line. He is out for the year this year. His athletic ability, where does he go down the line? Nathan Robinson, consensus 3-star. John Slaughter is a guy playing a little bit in some of these games at safety. Christian Conyer, he did transfer out of Coastal Carolina. Jeremiah Thielander, 3-star and 3. That was 4-star according to ESPN. He's a guy that keeps coming into his own here as well. Jack Luttrell transferred out. I think it was either Arizona or Arizona State that he went to. And then now here you get into your transfers. Omar Norman Lott's a guy not mentioned a lot. Last year, 5.5 sacks. He played a heck of a game against North Carolina State on Saturday night. Great pickup for him coming from Arizona State. He's been a very good addition. Here's some of your Keenan Pilley. This is a guy last year. Sometimes things happen, they're a blessing in disguise. Last year it was Aaron Beasley. It was Keenan Pilley. That was the linebacker they were high on. He played, 7 snaps against Virginia. Injury, out for the year. Elijah Herring mainly stepped in at that. Had his moments, struggled. He eventually transferred out after the season. And after this season, which team would Keenan Pilley have meant more to, last year's or this year's? And I'm saying even with him in last year, the win-loss record doesn't change. Possibly. We'll look at that here in a minute. I think he's a better part. I think he's more needed with this year's team than he was last year for difference. Gabe Judy Lawley was one of the consistent corners. Decent last year for Tennessee. He could have come back. He elected to go to the draft. He was a starter in the bowl game as well. And that's who you've added in through your recruiting class, through the portal. So as you can see on that, they did add some players that helped or were meant to come in and help on that as well. So now let's shift to that 2023 roster as to who's there. And of course, it's going to be pretty interesting when we get to it all as to how many left after last year. So additions: Judy Lawley. You had most of your defensive backs back. Jalen McCullough played his best ball last year. Kamal Haddon was playing his best ball till he got hurt, unfortunately, put him out for the year. Now, of course, a lot of these guys mentioned here gone after that 2023 season, most of them to transfer. Of course, Christian Charles back. As you look at this as well, as we go down the line here, a lot of names you're seeing not with this program anymore. Tyler Barron was a guy, played pretty good last year, not with the program anymore. Who was added along the way? Barron was pretty good last year. But, Bryson Eason coming in his own. You had Omari Thomas back. James Pierce Jr. really came into his own last year. You had Roman Harrison, who was a steady guy. Tyree West, end of the year, started to come in his own. It's carried over to this season. Omar Norman Lott, again, great addition. To me, a great addition. Last year, he's doing well this year as well. Dominic Bailey, just a solid guy, it seems like to me. Jason Jenkins was a guy who did flirt with leaving last year, stuck around. He's in the rotation. Karat Garland, I said he was gone after 2022. He did use a year and come back last year. And then your linebackers, Aaron Beasley led the way. Then you had Arion Carter, Pilley. It was meant to be Pilley and Beasley. Of course, Pilley went out. Here, Jalen Smith, Caleb Perry was a sophomore. Elijah Herring got the most play out of them. They did rotate some. Linebacking unit lacked I don't know. I didn't think they were great last year. But again, your main guy that you brought in was meant to be a pretty big part of that, and that's Keenan Pilley. So now I'm going to bring up let's go through just the schedule, and then I'm going to hit you with some stuff. You may not realize this, and maybe we underestimate just how good this defense was last year. So we look back at it. All right, I'm going to come back down here in just a moment. So you look at it. Tennessee beats Virginia 49-13, 30-13 over Austin Peay. That was a game. That game was pretty close till late. Here's a game I think a lot of people scratch their head at. Florida 29-16. There was no excuse to let that Florida team score 29. No excuse. I thought the game plan was poor. There was poor tackling. I don't know. It just seemed to me like that team was not interested in being there that night. And, it went to show. It was the worst game of the season, in my opinion. There's one more. The Georgia game, I'm not including just because Georgia was that much better than Tennessee. But then they come back, UTSA, 45-14. UTSA was supposed to have a really good quarterback who did not play that game. But then here was a revenge game. Tennessee Super Bowl, as Spencer Rattler said, it's Gamecock fans. South Carolina's nobody's Super Bowl. Nobody cares enough about them to be their Super Bowl unless it's maybe Orangeburg College, Newberry College, or somebody like that possibly. South Carolina State's one in Orangeburg. Maybe that is. Tennessee, yeah, it was a revenge game. Sure as hell wasn't their Super Bowl, though. 41-20, Tennessee dominated that game. That was a really good defensive outing. Kamal Haddon had that touchdown, that interception return for a touchdown. Rattler had a tough night. They hit him all night, had pressure on him. That Tennessee defense won them this next game. Texas A&M 2 weeks later, 20-13. They won that game because of their defense. Alabama, October 21st, 34-20. It was a game Tennessee led at the half. I have discrepancies over that game because Tennessee's defensive line could not do anything because nothing's getting called on them, on Alabama that game. How many videos, how many pictures, how many photos do you go back and look at of Tennessee guys getting blatantly held, and Alabama was not called? What were they called for? Like one freaking penalty the whole game? It was awful. The officiating was awful. But Tennessee's offense did not show up in the second half of that game. And that was, I think it ultimately boiled down to they were on the field too long. If those calls were made, would it have made a difference? I don't know. But the bottom line is I had some issues after that game, but still, yet your offense no showed the second half. Alabama's did show up. This was a game here, that Kentucky game. You made Kentucky's offense look a whole lot better than they should have. Whole lot better. That it was at Kentucky. I guess shouldn't have been surprising in that sense, but I thought it was a bad game for Tennessee's defense, and yet they were still able to win that game 33-27. UConn 59-3 did their job there. Missouri, this was one. A lot of people criticized the defense, and there were some issues, but here's your story. That 7. That offense was awful. It was absolutely awful in that game. The defense, I think, late wore down because they were on the field so much. And, it wasn't good, don't get me wrong. But I don't think the defense in that game was as bad as maybe led on. Georgia game 38-10. I mean, that was when Tennessee scores on the first play of the game from Jalen Wright. Their offense was nothing the rest of the game. And I don't think anybody in their right mind expected that. This is the problem with Tennessee playing Georgia. They can't score on Georgia in the hypo era. They can't stop Georgia on offense. And I know the 2022 was only 27-13, but let's get real about that one. Had it not been for a downpour of rain, that game would have been much, much worse. It would not have. Georgia kind of run that clock out the second half. They amped their offense way down. Tennessee's offense could not do much, and it would have been much, much worse had it not been for the weather. 48-24 over Vanderbilt the last game. Still some questions on the D. And then after that game, man, a lot of dudes hit the portal. A lot of that secondary hit the portal. And Tyler Barron hit the portal as well. Elijah Herring didn't hit it till after the season. But then you go to the bowl game against an Iowa team. I thought it was a defense that looked much better. Of course, they had a lot, over a month to prepare. Actually didn't have over a month to prepare. They had over a month of rest. They did have, numerous weeks to prepare, but I thought Iowa got close once, Turrentine interception. And then after that, they just rolled in that game. And I just think a lot of it too, ever since Nico has taken over, it's really been a shot in the arm for that defense. And I can't imagine being that defense last year with the offense the way it was sometimes, especially when a lot of these guys have played a lot of snaps and they were used to, for a couple of years, scoring a lot of points. Offense was down last year. Now, here's some stuff that's going to blow your mind on this. And we look at that and think, man, are they really improving? Tennessee's defense, according to college football stats, 2021, they ranked total overall 99th, 2022, 92nd. Get this right here. Last year, 2023, their defense ranked 33rd overall. That's a 59 spot increase for it. Sacks went from 27 in 2022 to 41 in 2023. And looking at those 41 as well, if you go down, obviously it was led by James Pierce Jr. last year. Your leading tackler, funny enough, was Elijah Herring, who then transferred out after the season. He wasn't guaranteed anything, so he left. Aaron Beasley, second leading tackler. There's a lot of guys on this list that left after the season. I mean, sacks, Tyler Barron had 6. James Pierce Jr. had 10. Omar Norman Lott had 5.5. Aaron Beasley had 3. Joshua Josephs had 3. Tyree West had 2 last year. So there were some guys who contributed last year who left after the season, hit the portal. And, I'm trying to think, did Barron play in the bowl game or not? I know a lot of these DBs left. I cannot remember on Tyler Barron now that I think about whether he played the bowl game or not. We can probably, I'm not that concerned about it to look it up, to be honest with you. But let's see here as well. But you look at that defense again. 41 sacks. Now, rushing-wise, 2022, they gave up 1,861 rushing yards, 15 TDs. 2023, they were down to 1,478, 13 touchdowns. Passing-wise, here's where you did see some improvement, whether at times we believed it or not. They went from 2022, 3,764 yards passing down to 2,879 in 2023. 270 completions, 414 attempts. Now, those attempts were way, way down from the previous 2 years. They had 12 interceptions, gave up only 15 touchdowns. So that defense, obviously, way, way down. Not on the field as much, obviously, with it as well. And your total defensive yards, 2021, they gave up 5,482. 2022, they gave up 5,269. 2023, 4,337. That's substantial progress. That is substantial progress. We may have looked at it at times like, what's going on here? But, man, that offense did not do this defense a lot of favors last year. Again, there's a few games I did not like the game plan. The Missouri game, I know people criticize that. Tennessee scored 7 points. They scored 7 points. Joe Milton threw a pick 6 in that game. Drinkwitz stood on business. Big bad man after that game. Talked big and bad after getting blown out the previous couple years and got blown out by Jeremy Pruitt. I can't remember. I don't think he was a coach that year, though, when Pruitt got him the last time. But it's in the stats. It's in the stats. That's substantial improvement. Were there games we question it? Yes, absolutely. But still yet, that defense was leaps and bounds better. Sacks were up, yardage down, INTs up, turnovers up. Proof's in the pudding. Defensive ranks, they go down 59 spots or go up 59. Ranked 30, went from 92nd to 33rd. So they went down, obviously, in that. The proof's there. They're making progress. Why were they making progress? Because the talent's getting better. They're building their system. Patience is a virtue. Patience happens. They stuck with the staff. They had the same staff last year from when they took over. Now, they've got a bit of a different staff this year. Tomorrow, I'm going to bring you part 4. Obviously, we're 2 games in, but people pretty happy with this so far. Pretty happy with it. Now, you've seen, last year, this year, they're playing 12 to 14 guys on the defensive line. Last year, by my count, they were playing 8, 9, maybe around 10. But I don't know if they rotated like they are now. So it was a deeper line. Your linebacker play last year, of course, when Pilley went out, it was really kind of a baptism by fire with a lot of younger dudes. And, but they had their moments. They had their moments. Not great, not bad all the time. There was the angles and stuff. But then after the season, you had a lot of guys in that defensive backfield hit the portal. Brian Jean-Marie left, go to Michigan. In comes an influx of talent. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Who come in from the portal, who come into the recruiting class. Where can this defense go for 2024? It's exciting to see what they're going to do. The real question is going to be what happens when they get to SEC play. I hope you like this. I hope over time these views will pick up on it. They've not been substantial. Nothing's got a whole lot of views on here recently. It is what it is, though. It'll pick up. We'll keep going at it. We'll keep on rocking. Basketball's around the corner. Baseball video. I analyzed 2025 SEC portion of the schedule a little bit earlier. Uploaded that about an hour or so ago. But we'll keep on rocking on part 4 of this tomorrow. I'll also have a basketball recruiting videos. Tennessee's got a big recruiting weekend coming up this weekend. Frank Rock, House of Orange Sports Channel. Last but most certainly not least, go Vols.